Alright guys, so these are our notes for tonight that we're going to fill out, and then you guys are going to do the crossword puzzle for homework after that. So all we need to do here is fold this in half and give it a nice fold right to the middle. And then meet this one in the middle, and then if we want, we can be cute to cut these out and get doors. And today what we really need to build upon are our basic terms in geometry, so like the building blocks of geometry. Because once we have these, we can kind of make larger shapes and larger things and talk about bigger stuff, okay? So we're going to start with a point. A point is the most basic geometric figure, and all it is really a dot. So a dot. It needs to happen, or we need to have it happen, because it shows location. However, once we kind of have that dot on there and that location pointed out to us, it doesn't take up any space. So no space taken up. Okay, the way we draw it is we just put a little dot, not a huge obnoxious dot, but we just want to put a little dot. And typically what we want to do is, because we might have different locations that we're talking about, is we want to label it with an uppercase letter. Okay, so our naming here is always uppercase letters. It doesn't have to be A, it can be something more intuitive. Like if you're at Flushing, you might want to call it an F. Alright, the next thing that we're going to talk about, one level higher than that, is a line. So the definition of a line is always made up of 2 points. So as long as I have 2 points kind of connected and through, so connected and not ending, we have a line. So what it looks like is if I have 2 points, maybe point A and point B over here, if I connect them, and I want to do this with a straight edge here so I get a straight line, and I do not end, I keep going. And to show that I'm going to continue going forever in that direction, I put arrows to show it. Then I have what's called a line. Okay, so if I'm not going to draw a picture, but I need to talk about the line, the way that we name it, or the way that we'd write it down, is we'd write the 2 letters that are on the line, really any 2 letters that are on the line, and then over top of those 2 capital letters, we're going to put a line with arrows on either end. Okay, so any 2 letters on line. Never more than 2 letters though. We always only use 2 letters. Okay. Actually, next I'm going to go to line segment because it's very similar to a line. So we have 2 points that connected, but this time with a line segment, it's only a portion of that line. So 2 points connected that end. Okay, so if I were to draw something like that, I'd maybe have point A and then point B over here. And when I draw with my straight edge, rather than going through this time, I'm going to end at those points. Now, line segments are super important because oftentimes we do end, like if I'm going from Flushing to Grand Blanc, I know we can't do that in a straight line. However, those are end points. I'm going to begin at one side and end at the other. We're not going to go any further than that. A line goes on forever, and that's kind of not something that we can do. So when we go to name a line segment, there are kind of 2 ways we can do it. Similar to a line, we use 2 letters that are on our segment, any 2 letters, because there might be other letters in between here. And over top of it, we can draw the line segment like this without arrows to show that it does end. But we don't always have to be that specific. If we want to just put the two letters next to each other like that, that's also fine. So it's always two letters, never more than that. Okay. Another thing that's kind of similar to a line and a line segment, kind of the marriage of the two, if you will, is a ray. So a ray is a line, kind of, that only goes in one direction. Okay, so for example, I might have 2 points, because if I'm going to make a line, I have to have 2 points. So maybe I have point A and point B. But rather than me going through both ends of it, I might only go through one end of it. So one of them is like the beginning, and then I continue forever in the other direction. Okay, so our rays might go to the left or to the right or up or down. This is just one instance of that. And the way that we would name a ray is very specific, and this is the trickiest one. Okay, so we always use our 2 letters, any 2 letters on the line, but we always have to start with the end point. And what I mean by an end point is where we stop. We don't have an arrow. So in this case, B has to come first, and A would have to come after that. Now, if there was another point on there, we could use a different point, but we'd have to use B. And the reason that we have to do that is because our arrow over top should always point to the right. So arrow always points right. And so even though my line isn't really, or my ray rather, isn't really going in that direction in my naming convention, it still makes sense because the end happens at B and the arrow is closer to A. So hopefully that makes sense to you. It'd kind of be wrong to do it A, B. It could be really wrong to do that, so don't do that. Okay, next. A plane is another level higher, okay? So we have a point that is the smallest thing. We have a line that consists of 2 points, actually lots of points, but all I need is 2. A plane happens when I have 3 points out in space, and then I can connect them to get this flat surface. So 3 points connected, flat space in between is our plane. Okay, so our plane has no thickness. It's like a flat sheet of paper. Could be a really good example of a plane. Now, usually how we draw a plane, I know I say over here 3 points connect, so it could look something like this, and then if I connect them, the space that I get in the middle would be considered a plane. But oftentimes the pictures that we use in geometry and things like that will look more like a quadrilateral. So usually a plane will look something like this. And then you might end up getting some points on it, or some lines on it, or some rays on it, or whatever. And so we might have like a point A, B, and C on here. We might even get a line between some of them. And so there's a couple of ways we can name a plane as well. Because a plane has to have at least 3 points, we could name it plane. And this one we actually have to have the word in front of it. There's not a symbol that goes over top of it, unfortunately. So we could name it plane and then any 3 points that are on it. So in this case, ABC. Now if I had a point D on there, I could call it ABD or whatever, but just 3 points. So 3 points always. Now another way to do this is if there is a capital cursive letter on your plane, like a capital cursive L, you could also call it plane L. Which reminds me, if I go back to our line, if you put a lowercase cursive letter next to it, you could also call this line L, would be another way to name a line. Okay. Now, I don't want to overdo it, so opposite rays we're going to talk about tomorrow, or maybe you can make a guess as to what you think it is, and we are going to do more of this in class on Tuesday.